Well, thank you so much for staying with us. And thank you again to Bull Country Compost and Hayseed Hank for sponsoring our show. So we wanted to answer a few more of the questions that we have. And actually, the next question that we have is, what should I top dress my garden with for fall and into the winter? So you can top dress with several different things, but we always recommend manure. And if you've had some real issues with nutrient levels, straight manure is fine. I made a post this week about chicken manure. And so you can, put the hot manure on your garden at this time of the year and let it sit all winter long. And then it's going to be fine to go ahead and plant next year. And so the post I made this week was about, come on over. We'll put the Bobcat bucket up to the chicken coop. You can pitch into the bucket all that you want, and we'll dump it into your truck for free. And so we offer that every year, and we do it so at this time of the year, so it makes it great for the people that want to do this. And other people have asked, isn't that going to be too hot? And no, it's not. You can definitely put that hot manure inside your high tunnel, inside in your garden, in your raised beds. As long as you're not planting in it right away, you can use that hot manure because you're not going to be planting into it next year. If you are using your high tunnel this winter, you don't want to put the hot manure in because it will be too hot and you can burn. But if you aren't doing any planting until next season, you can definitely put hot manure in. And that's if you really have some nutrient deficiencies. If you are just really looking to break up heavy clay soils, just enrich the soil, but you need some nutrients also, that's when that Bull Country compost is going to be the ideal thing to put down. And the best thing that I think would be great is to put down your cover crop and then top dress that with the Bull Country compost, and then let that cover crop be there for the winter. You have the Bull Country compost there for the winter. In the spring, you'll till it all in, and you will have just an amazing amount of nutrients going into that soil, and you will be amazed at how good your garden does next year. So those are some great tips for getting that nutrient level back up if you haven't had it this year. A lot of people, had some issues at the beginning of the season because it was very wet, and then we went into a drought and it was very hot. But at the end of the season, still a lot of people had wonderful harvests. I mean, we've had people calling in this week about their pepper harvest. It's just been overwhelming. They can't even use all of their peppers. And I've seen posts on Facebook about that as well. So, and they have actually been following these guidelines. I know Christina messaged me this week and said, I have so many peppers. I'm selling them, and I just cannot believe how wonderful it is. And this spring, I think I delivered 5 yards of Bull Country compost that she top dressed and planted in her raised beds straight from Bull Country compost. And so she is definitely a testimony to the wonders of Bull Country compost, planting in and top dressing your gardens with it, and what a wonderful product that is. Now, the next question that we had was about sweet potatoes. And when should we harvest our sweet potatoes? Well, your sweet potatoes are going to be like your regular potatoes. You want to harvest them when the plant itself is looking bad. And they take a lot longer to look bad than your regular potatoes did. So if your regular potatoes are already being harvested, and some people harvested a few weeks ago, but your sweet potato plants still look good, you're in the same boat as the rest of us, because my sweet potatoes the plants still look beautiful. That's going to change real quickly as we start having these cooler nights. Even I didn't check this morning, but last night was pretty cool. We have a few of these cooler nights in a row. 4, 5, 6 nights in the upper 30s, low 40s, you'll see your sweet potatoes really turning and those plants not looking good. And then you'll be able to go ahead and get them harvested. When you do harvest your sweet potatoes, you want to dig them out. You want to spray them off, get the dirt off of them. and then set them out in the sun or in a dry place where they can dry before you put them away for storage, so that you don't have those issues with the rotting, sort of like we talked about earlier in the show with our caladium bulbs and our aloe and calocasia bulbs. You want to make sure that you don't put them away damp or anything like that. You want to make sure that they're very, very dry. A cool, dry place for storage is going to be the very best for your sweet potatoes. Again, some people put them in sawdust and then use them right out of there. But in most cases, unless you grow a huge amount of sweet potatoes, you'll just be able to put them in a box or a brown paper bag, and in the cool storage, you'll be able to have them for quite some time, and you'll be good to go. The next question that we had was about fall cleanups, or what we call fall cleanups. Fall cleanup is when you cut down your perennials, when you rake out leaves and debris from your beds, those kind of things to get the bed ready for the winter. And so this is the time that we're going to start doing some of that. You're going to notice that many of your perennials, they might have been done blooming a month or 2 months or 3 months ago, but the foliage was still nice and green. And now that we're having these cooler temperature nights, you're really going to notice those leaves turning yellow and brown, falling over. There's no trigger pressure in that stalk, and they're going to be falling over. And so this is when you're going to want to go ahead and get those cut off. And all of those things can be cut off. You don't want to trim back woody shrubs too far down. Remember, they're a shrub if they have a woody stalk. And if it's just herbaceous, just green tissue, then that's when it's a perennial. So things like your butterfly bush, if you have false spirea, blue indigo, those ones are a woody shrub, even though a lot of people place them in that perennial category. Those you can cut back, but you don't want to cut those all the way to the ground. You want to cut them up about 18 inches, and don't let them, don't cut them down too far. But you can cut them at that time, and anything that's done blooming and their foliage is turning yellow and brown, you can go ahead and cut off. You don't want to cut things back that are still looking great and beautiful and green, because photosynthesis is still taking place, and that's still feeding that root, even though it might not be flowering. So things are still happening there. So your fall cleanup might not all happen in one day. It's okay to go out and do what you can, and then leave the other ones go so that the plant gets what it needs. This is also the time in the fall when you want to go ahead and do fertilization. So this is when October is the ideal month to fertilize your trees and your shrubs. You want to put your fertilizer down at the drip line of the plant, and I always tell everyone, if you can only fertilize once a year, and this is for everything, your lawns, your trees, your shrubs, everything. If you can only fertilize once a year because of cost, or because you just physically you're not up to it and you can't pay someone to do it in the fall, because the plant is going into a dormancy or to a slower time, because even our evergreens that don't lose their leaves, they are slowing up and there's not growth going on. So the fertilizer that you put down is feeding that root system, and it's going to make it rich, and it just feeds that root system so that next spring the plant will flourish. So this is the time that you want to do that at the drip line of your trees and your shrubs. Your lawn, this is when you're going to put down, remember that corn gluten meal. If you're just doing a fertilization and a weed control, this is going to be your last step, would be the corn gluten meal, unless you are doing what? Right, aerating and overseeding. Then you do not want to use the corn gluten meal because it will stop your grass seed from germinating. You want to use your top cut or your milorganite, and then you'll be all set for that. But this is when you want to get that fertilization down. This is also the time to go ahead and sprinkle down your fertilizer in your perennial beds. You can go ahead and get that down. This is when you want to put down your plant tone or your flower tone in those areas. The only thing, it is still too early to fertilize, are your roses. And I like you to wait on your roses until we have a actual freeze. We have not had a freeze yet. So many times with roses, they're very temperamental. And if you fertilize your roses now before we have had a freeze, the plant starts to get those nutrients into their roots and they will shoot off new growth. And then that new growth will get hit by that freeze, and then it will freeze that off, and you'll have more winter dieback on your plant than you would if you waited. So I usually recommend, if you can, wait until we have a freeze, not just a frost. I want to see a freeze, that we have the temperature at night has got below 32 degrees, and then you can go ahead and put down the fertilizer for your roses. But any other plant in your landscape, you can go ahead and anytime the month of October, put down that fertilization. Now, the last question that we had was about hydrangeas, and we have so many hydrangea questions. When should I cut them down? You can cut them back now, or you can wait till the spring. If you do cut down now, I recommend making sure that you mulch heavy, because then all that in the middle there is all open, and you're going to want some more mulch there to help prevent any type of too much cold getting to the crown of that plant. And you don't need to cut them down all the way to the ground. Down to about that 18-inch mark is going to be fine for those as well. Well, here we are at the end of our show. Again, reminder, hit those farmers markets today. There's going to be so many that has so wonderful produce for you. If you are in the area, I would love to meet you. You can stop out at the Louisville Farmers Market today till 1 o'clock. It's one of the late going ones. I will be there with produce and all the other ones that are going on throughout the day as well. Please, visit those farmers market and support those vendors. Also, make sure you've marked your calendar for the 17th all day long at Anthony Petitti Organic Greenhouse for a great, fun, filled day fall festival. Thanks so much. Have a great week, and we'll be back next week right here on The Light at 8 a.m. Saturday morning. Thanks so much.